Gayatri Mahamantra with left hand beneath the right, both hands on your laps. Contemplate it. Om Bhuribhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Deva Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namo Namah Akhand Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namo Namah Om Shri Guruve Namo Namah Avahayami Sthapyami Dhyayami Pujyami Tato Namaskaram Karomi. Shrimed Bhagavad Gita, chapter Raj Yoga, Raj Guhya Yoga. Today we embark upon the verse number 2, shlok number 2, which has to convey a lot. There are more than 7 to 8 points that it intends to convey in its own manner. Before I come down to the verse exactly, let me make a mention about few aspects which probably the audience listening to me in English would be able to connect. The word Raj means royal, royalty. Now we have to understand, what does royal have to do with something which is a knowledge, and that too termed as an esoteric knowledge under yoga. Is there any kind of a classification among the knowledge as well? This is royal, this is commoner, this is middle class, upper class, and a social strata even prevails into the classification and categorization of the knowledge. Well, that is not my subject, so therefore I may not go much into that and confine to only one aspect of the understanding. The word Raj in Sanskrit corresponds to another word which is a root of it, which is Raj. Rajati is the nearest word which explains what it means. Raj means something which shines on its own. It does not require any external source of light. It in itself illuminates, is not dependent upon any other source. For example, if I go on to say, if I talk about this space, we have the sun atop. As it is understood that even the sun borrows its energy from a larger sun. Although we may not be able to see that, but that is the understanding that we draw. Even the sun borrows its energy from a larger sun. Moon, obviously, already declared as a satellite. It depends upon the sun. And along with the sun is the solar family. Each one of them is exclusively dependent upon the sun. And sun, in its own capacity too, is dependent on something else. Now, and this aspect has been very well mentioned even in Gayatri Mantra as Savita. Although we assume, we give it to ourselves, the idol of sun as the idol of Gayatri. But Savita means something that even fuels the sun. Something which is the source of energy even to the sun. That is Savita. Having said that, the idea is to comprehend one aspect of anything which we can imagine, which does not source its existence to anything external. In its own capacity, is conclusive, absolutely conclusive, does not depend upon anything else. Now, the nearest example that we have in around us is about a money. I'm not able to gather the exact term in English for money, something that we believe that it's in the forehead of rarest of rare snakes. And it also is something in material form which does not source light from any external source. It by itself illuminates. Now, we have not seen money. Of course, we have not seen it. We have heard about it. It is the kind of tales and lores that we've been hearing since long, with childhood. Even if you have to imagine about something, there's no harm, because we're talking about something which glitters, illuminates on its own. Even if we have to make our imagination run beyond, it may appear a weird aspect to a certain extent. Let it, doesn't matter. When you have to comprehend something which we have never experienced, or something which probably is not possible for us to experience at this moment, then obviously we take the help of a imagination. And that's how even science proceeds towards its own investigation initially. So, like any other science, the science of soul too must further itself upon something which we may not have at hand at the moment, but we can somehow envisage, think about it, maybe through imagination. So, Raj means something which illuminates on its own, not dependent upon anything. And what is that? We have, or we can term to something which illuminates on its own, absolutely independent, not dependent on anything. Obviously, Atma, the soul. Anything and everything that you look around is dependent. Yes, even the five elements, they're dependent upon each other, and they also source their origin to something else. When the elements are even dependent, then comes down your mind, brain, I mean, thoughts, desires, your isness, etc. They all seek their dependence upon something. They're hinged to someone. They're really hinged to someone to bank upon. Whereas the soul, as the learned one, the wise one, the exalted ones have experienced, it does not depend upon anything. The unborn one, the pure one, does not depend on anything else. It by itself is complete, does not require any external source to come and propel it. No, Atma is complete, conclusive in itself. Okay, so when we talk about Raj Vidya, Vidya means knowledge. So it means that the knowledge we are talking about corresponds to something that illuminates on its own. So that concludes. So why do we term it as the royal word may not be able to give the exactness of the understanding which has been bestowed in Sanskrit by the word Raja. Royalty, yes, to an extent we can say that even the king, we can say in its own domain, in its own jurisdiction, is exclusively independent. Monarchy does not depend. But yes, we have observed that even in the royalty, the monarchs, they also have something to hinge upon, something to depend upon, the external pressures, etc., etc. Whereas the soul, it really does not depend on anything. It's conclusive. It is a tiny God. It is a tiny almighty in itself. So if it's a tiny almighty, does not depend upon anything, so take it for belief that it is absolutely independent. So the real aspect of the term sovereignty, if it has to be understood in absolute terms, then it is with the Atma. We all term ourselves as a sovereign nation, and so does all the other rest of the countries of the world. They are sovereign. They have their own might, they have their own right within their jurisdiction, within their own domain. Whereas the soul, in its own domain and jurisdiction, can transcend without limits. First of all, it is limitless. There are no limits, there are no jurisdictions, there are no territorial boundaries for it. It is all pervasive because it's a tiny almighty. In the capacity of a tiny almighty, it pervades and prevails all over and requires nothing to depend upon. So it is Raja, Vidya, a knowledge about something which does not depend on anything. It is absolute might, absolute sovereignty it enjoys in itself. That is the soul, Atma. So this knowledge is about it. So we have a wonderful symbolic indication given here for the Raja Vidya. Then the next term which you will be able to cite in this verse is, there are few words which the master of all times is trying to explain. Another word which he has picked up is the guhya, esoteric, secretive. There is nothing which is esoteric more than this particular knowledge, the science of soul. It's esoteric, secretive. Why is it so? Why do they have to term it like that? That's for the reason, for a valid reason. You and me, we read about it. Yes, you and me, we read about it. We try to understand through our available potential of the mind. Yes. Yet, even after understanding, do we realize the soul? No, we don't realize. We don't undergo self realization. We are reading, we comprehend, we try to encompass more and more about it, but we have not been able to realize the soul. Self realization is something which is not an occurrence with us so far, despite of the fact that we've been reading about it since last few decades, or maybe 1 year or 2 years or whatever time maybe. So even after reading, even after knowing about it, even after understanding about it, it is not realized. It is that esoteric, it is that secretive to that extent that merely about knowing about it, even if you read and observe voluminous compilation about and scriptures of various streams of knowledge that talk about the soul, shall they all be able to capacitate to self realization? No, not at all. You are feeding your mind, you're feeding your intellect through the sensorial drivers you possess. But self realization is beyond that, because for self realization, you have to first of all relinquish from all those instruments that are generally deployed to gather inputs of knowledge. You use your eyes, your ears, your hands, touch, smell, taste, etc. They all are deployed to gather inputs of information about anything. You deploy your thoughts, you run into an imagination, you recall something from memory, and you term yourself, yes, I read that. I experienced that. Yes, I was trying to understand that. Whereas when it comes to self realization, all these that I've termed right now, a while ago, have to be relinquished. They do not have entry into the domain of the soul. They have nothing to do with that. So that is why it is esoteric. You and me are reading, listening, trying to understand. But when it comes to realize a soul, you and me have to empty our head. Our head has to touch something which we call as nothingness, thoughtlessness, absolutely open, blank. Otherwise, that blissful experience of self realization shall never come to us. We shall never be able to realize. So it is esoteric. You can read, yet not realize it merely by reading or understanding about the knowledge. Now, I think it's time for us to connect with the verse which is going to appear before you in the slide here. Another word which it talks about is pavitram. What does pavitram means? Purity. What is the meaning of purity? Let us translate the meaning of purity or make this word actionable. Purity in action, what does it mean? Become pure. Obviously means removal of any and every contaminant, any and every holding, any and every shortfall, any and every binding, anything that holds you, anything that binds you. When you absolutely relieve yourself from that, maybe in the form of a thought, imagination, some regression of an past experience, or maybe the binding of the cycle of the nature, maybe the birth and death as a cycle, whatever. Anything that comes to you as a holding, generally termed as a vicious cycle. Yes, anything that comes to hold you from transcending beyond, taking a plunge towards absolute liberation, is a contamination. And purity means anything which is capacitated, potent enough to remove that, whether it is the karmic bondage or whatever, in whatever form, imaginable or unimaginable, or something which we are able to understand right now, or maybe something which we have missed to notice at the moment. But anything that is there to hold us from transcending beyond towards the plunge towards absolute liberation is an holding. And purity here means when the purity dawns, no hold, no holding remains. Every contaminant, every holding, each and every binding dissipates, incinerates, it evaporates, it is non-existent. That is the meaning of purity here. This is the science of soul, science of a soul which by itself is capacitated, self-illuminated. The science of the soul is esoteric, read, understood, yet not realized. And when realized, the same moment, within a flash of a second, everything that holds you disappears. And there is nothing other than it that can be held as the ultimate. It is the only ultimate. Knowledge about it is the ultimate. Realization of it is the ultimate. Anything you talk about it in all respects is ultimate. Uttamam, ultimate. The fourth aspect it says is prataksha avagamam. To experience anything, you need an external source. There's something which I probably would relate with point number 1 and point number 4 over here. For a direct revelation, for a direct realization, prataksha is direct. Is what? Generally, when we try to gather information or knowledge about anything, there are three aspects which the exalted ones have mentioned as the knower, the knowledge, and whatever you gather as inputs of information, whatever is revealed before you. So they call it a gyata, jnana, gaya. So these three aspects have to be present when you want to gather information about anything, which is not the case with the soul, which is not the case with the self-realization. I don't know soul is the right word to be expressed for Atma or not. Since we do not have any other one to say, we use it in English, but the real aspect is well satisfied with Atma. I'm not using the word Jivatma here, where the soul is yet encased into the cycles of manifestation. That is termed as Jivatma. We're talking about Atma here and not Jivatma, not encased in any cycle. Pratyaksha avagamam. You do not require anything else because nothing is going to come from outside. There is no first, second, or third aspect to it. No knowledge, no knower, and nothing which is going to be revealed. It is something which already exists within you. No external source is going to come and unravel in with you. You yourself shall be able to realize it. Atma Bodha. Adiguru Shankaracharya, a couple of days ago, we had this Brahmurat Satsanga from 68 verses, which was a wonderful experience for all of us. And what do we understand? That self-realization, it really comes like we observe it like a rising sun. Before it creeps up, before the line of that horizon, there is light. Then gradually the light increases, and then appears the sun. It appears as it is was soaked into the earth, and now it is coming out. Its projection is now protruding outward, upward, and there it is in ascension. So something like that happens within a being when the contamination of ignorance is removed from the tiny ultimate within. Something unfolds which already existed there. Nothing comes from anywhere. Nothing comes from anywhere. It is already there. Something which was already there, do we have to give it term as revealed? No, realized. Realized is the right word for that. We realized it. It is there. It is there. It always existed there. Rather, anything other than that is truly non existence. It's truly not going to last forever, is not eternal. It is going to be short lived. Anything other than that, it is the only one which is going to be everlasting, shall never cease to exist. The fruit of its realization are direct. There is nothing which is involved as an intermediary. No steps, nothing else. The fifth word it mentioned is dharmayam. Dharmayam means it is dharma. Do we have the right appropriate word for dharma in English? I don't know. I'm yet to come across the exact word for dharma. There are so many words that we are not able to find the appropriate one in certain of the languages. And the same goes with dharma. Dharma, let us understand dharma as dharma itself, and even if understood as what's rightful duty. Although the rightful duty of a being is what? For a being, I'm saying, not as a in the form of only a human, but I'm saying a being who has already undergone countless cycles of evolution, who has manifested in countless forms and manners in the form of various species, and now today it is in the form of a human trying to understand something. Of course, it evolved under evolution. So the purpose of manifestation for any being, in human inclusive, is what? Atmano moksha. Liberation. Liberate yourself. As I always say in my classrooms, why did this all happen to us? There is no one to answer. You cannot find an answer to it. Why all this is happening? You cannot. How it is happening? This is a matter of investigation, that is science, and certainly can be unraveled. But you cannot ask this question. This the creator itself probably would be able to answer once we hold that capacity to go and question it. Anyway, this is said and done for this particular question, which never has been answered ever by any great exalted one. After all, why all this? Nobody can answer that. So the duty of any being, the expectation of any being, the mandatory obligation for any manifestation of in the form of a being is to liberate, absolute liberation. So the knowledge about soul, the knowledge about this esoteric knowledge about the science of soul, to know it, to practice it is dharma. It is the dharma. The last word is very confusing one now. No, not the last one, sorry. The sixth word, which is susukham, that is confusing. The confusion will be between the second one and the sixth one. The second one says goyam, esoteric, very complex, secretive. And the sixth one is susukham. Probably the digit in your slide has moved slightly leftward. Instead of being on the susukham, the digit 6 has come down to dharmayam. So that's something which probably, while the slide was being converted as a JPEG, could not happen at that moment. Anyway, so susukham means something which is very easy, can be realized very comfortably, without any kind of any disruption, without much of problem, at absolute ease. Well, these words are contradictory. On one hand, it is complex, it is secretive, guhyam. On the other hand, it mentions it comes with great ease. There is no complication involved. Yes, both are right in their own capacity. It is esoteric as well as comes to you with absolute ease. Now, how does it happen? When we talk about esoteric, the examples are already given. By merely knowing about it, understanding about it, reading about it, even voluminous compilation shall never be able to cherish self realization. Okay, understand. It is esoteric. Go here. Now comes the aspects of Sukham. How do you say it can come to you with absolute ease? Because there is no other, any other enjoyment associated with it. There's only one question that has to be answered. Only one question. What is that? Who am I? Any other thing? No. This is the only question you have to answer. Answer? Realize. The only question left for you to realize is who am I? Anything else? No. Nothing else. Who am I? Is the only question that you need to resolve by realization. Anything else? No. Because anything else that could create a complexity is not present when the innermost probe is in action. All of you, those of you who probably have been a part of that sadhana of Vijnanamaya Kosh with me, the Gnostic Yoga with me, would probably be able to recall when we start that sadhana of Vijnanamaya Kosh, what do? We go on peeling off our existence. We shun away, first of all, the physical dimension, all these organs, by questioning ourselves, are they me? Are they me? Then you go on proceeding, then you come to your own soft matter. Am I a thought? Am I an imagination? Am I a desire? Am I a recall of some memory? Or am I a name that I'm addressed by? Or am I a face that I am recognized by? And then at the end of the, when everything else has to leave, is dropped, one after another, everything is dropped. Then you're left with only blankness, blankness, probing, uncharted uncertainty. And what is that? Who am I? What all I am not has been dropped. Now the furtherance is an absolute pitch dark, something you call nowhere. You're you're furthering, you're moving ahead into nowhere. It appears to be nowhere, but actually you're proceeding to somewhere. When you go on asking, it's like boring into a mountain to create a cave, a tunnel. You're creating a tunnel. Unless the tunnel opens up, the cavity opens up on the other side, it's going to be nothing. Work being done under operation, result nothing, the same darkness. And that darkness comes, remains till the moment the ushering of the new sky unravels before you. It unleashes before you. Till then, this pitch dark blankness must remain. So, this is very comfortable yet esoteric. Comfortable, easy, because there is nothing else to be probed, no other holding, no deviation, no deflect, no room for any deflect. Yeah, but to be capacitated with a still mind, with a still body, to go on probing yourself is something which is very arduous. It may take life for you to capacitate, to become eligible to undergo this kind of an inner voyage into uncertainty, where you go on drilling, yet the cavity is not ending, it's not opening up on the other side, and you don't know when it shall. Should it, would it ever happen? The only hope is the exalted ones who have already pierced through, and through their experiences we understand, yes, it does. And that enables us keep going even during the moments of zero achievement, nothing coming, yet we go on. because exalted ones have established, they have laid down their benchmark. It happens. Go on. Your pursuit, perseverance must go on. Don't count the minutes, the years spent into it. Keep going your way. Keep asking yourself. Even if you're capacitated enough to, with all stillness, to go on asking yourself, who am I? And you are able to stay with it while retaining your entire composture. Consider yourself to be absolutely blessed one, because the rarest of rare are capacitated, eligible, even to embark upon such a pursuit. The sway, the swing of the mood, distractions all outside, they can deflect you countless times for countless years. And if you have been able to hold yourself tight, you are the eligible one. So that is something you have to understand. Two extremities have to be understood within the same vision, same sight, within the same focus, within the same pan. You have to see both. When you see through the camera, you see the pan of the camera. Between this, my lens is able to cover. So within this lens, you hold on one hand the guhyam, complexity, esoteric, secretive, and the other hand hold within the pan of the camera the absolute ease. Both are right in their part when you talk about the science of soul, when you talk about the self-realization. It's absolute ease through which you can get it, because there is no other enjoyments with it. Yes, yet secretive, because merely knowing about it, reading about it for lives to come shall not be able to unravel before you this. So both the aspects of understanding can withstand by the mentioning I gave you right now. Kartum, so sukham kartum avyayam, everlasting. Everlasting. Any impact, anything that we experience in our life has an age, has a limitation. You cherish something today, it is conditioned. Even for Kundalini, it is said, the exalted ones have mentioned it, that even that is conditioned to a great extent. Whereas when you liberate, when you experience absolute liberation, then it is Nitya Shuddha, Nitya Buddha, Nitya Mukta. Purity forever, Nitya Shuddha. Blissful knowledge forever, realization. Absolute knowledge. Nitya Mukta. Liberation forever. Then there is no reason or rhyme for any kind of binding, any kind of entrapment. Nothing, no entrapments now. You're beyond them. You're beyond them. You're absolutely beyond them. And that is the beatitude of this. Having understood all these aspects, Arjuna through this verse has been impressed by the Keshava, his timeless master, to now arouse within an element of deep interest towards understanding of this science, which talks about the science of soul, esoteric, yet to be realized with absolute ease. Something once realized shall never cease to exist, shall remain forever. All these aspects are there to create a deep interest into Arjuna to go and know about it more and more, more and more. Having said that, it's enough for the class of today. More to come. The class is held live on second and last Sunday of each month at 9 a.m. according to the Indian Standard Time. Till next class, Om Hi Satya Hai. Om Hi Satya Hai. Om Hi Satya Hai.